Hello friends, and welcome back to the Mothership. Today we're making our very own homemade pork bratwurst, and then we're going to boil it up in some beer for some beer brats. Let's get started. I have here a pork butt. Now, like with all sausages, the first thing that we need to do is get our meat cut into either cubes or strips so that it will pass through our grinder. Now, when you're making a bratwurst, in general, the primary meat is pork. Traditionally, I think they tend to have they tend to have veal in them. Sometimes they do beef. For these, I'm just going to go straight pork. If you want to go a little more traditional, you could definitely toss in some of your beef or some of your veal if you have it. But for me, a full pork butt should actually have about the ratio that I'm looking for. I don't think I need to add any back fat. But what I want to do is just get into nice strips that'll go through my grinder. So that will easily go through my grinder. Cut it in half for... Now, as far as amount, for this recipe, I'm going to go with about 5 pounds. I tend to do everything, honestly, by the metric system when I am doing sausages. So that would be about 2,270 grams of meat is about 5 pounds. And perfect. I have here 5 pounds of roughly cubed pork butt. Still a little bit left on the bone. I'll probably just slow cook this and have a little bit of extra pulled pork for lunch today. Now what we're gonna do, if you've ever made sausages before, you know that we need to get this nice and almost frozen. So I'm going to put it evenly, as even as I can, onto a tray and throw it into the freezer. And we're gonna take it just to the point where it's just about to start freezing. And that's the perfect time for us to grind it. This is also a great time to take all the metal components of your grinder. So your auger, your blades, your little mesh, and all that stuff. And we are going to put it in the freezer as well. Get everything nice and cold. And while we wait, let's throw together our ingredients. Now, to get our dry seasonings together, our first base is going to be salt. Since we're making sausage, everything is by weight. So you can use table salt, kosher salt, whatever salt you want. But we want 40 grams. Like I said, it's very nice to have a handy dandy little accurate gram calculator. I mean, this will do ounces too, but we're going with the metric system here. About 6 grams of white pepper, about 4 grams of marjoram, which can be kind of hard to find, but it's worth it. You could probably try using oregano, but honestly, this has a different taste. They're kind of similar, but you should try and find the right stuff. Some dried fennel, some ground nutmeg, some dried ginger, some garlic powder, and then lastly, a little bit of dried mustard. We can set these aside while we get everything prepped for our grind. Everything's nice and cold, grinder set up. I'm using my 3mm or about 3/16 inch plate. And I want these kind of be a little bit coarse, so I'm only gonna grind them once. So let's just fill up the hopper and get it grinded. Now I've run everything through our grinder once, and at this point you could be done. You could move ahead with adding in our ingredients and mixing everything together. If you like a finer grind in your sausages, go through for another round. But in this case, I want to go with a coarser grind. So I'm just going to throw a couple ice cubes through, get the rest of it out, and then we can move forward with mixing everything together. The first thing that I want to do is get our dry ingredients evenly distributed over the top of our meat. I'm going to take our binding agent, which in this case I'm going with what should be egg whites, but I broke a couple. So mostly egg whites with a little bit of yolk in there. And then for our liquid component, I'm going to mix in beer. I'm going just with a German lager, and I'm going to add it in as needed. Maybe you don't need it, maybe you do need it. If you want to use water, that works too, but I have it on reserve just in case. So what we're going to do is just fold everything into each other, get everything nice and dispersed throughout. Now the fat here is starting to smear a bit, you can see, and it's getting a little bit tacky. It's kind of sticking to my gloves. I'm going to add in just a little bit of beer here. Then keep on mixing. All right, this is where I want it. Still sticky, but it falls off. This is about perfect to me. You can see this fat is all starting to smear together, or smear apart, excuse me. What I want to do now is I'm just going to take a little bit and fry it up real quick and make sure the flavor profile is where I want it to be. At this point, you could determine if it needs a little more salt or pepper or anything. So I'm just going to give it a nice little taste test. Then we can move forward with actually casing these suckers. After a taste test, I determined I needed a bit more marjoram and a bit more fennel. What you see in the ingredients listed down below is what I actually ended up using. What we're going to do now is take all of our meat and fill up our caser. I'm just going to toss everything in, get all the air bubbles out, and then I'm going to throw it into the fridge. I want everything to start to come back together, all the proteins do their thing, get nice and happy with each other. So I'm just going to put it into the format of this cylinder, put it in the fridge while I get everything else together, maybe about an hour just to let everything recongeal, and then we'll move forward with actually casing. Look at that. It's almost like I chose doing 5 pounds for a reason. Now to get our sausages going, the first thing we gotta do is get our casings on, which if you're immature like me, is gonna make you laugh a lot. I'm using these casings that have like this little plastic guide rail on there, supposedly to make them a lot easier to get onto the machine here, which I suppose is a little bit easier. I don't really know. Clip. Now that should be about enough for this amount of sausage. If not, we can always add more. So when you're making sausage, you could tie them off as you're going through, or you can do them all at the very end, which is what we're going to do here. So basically, I'm just going to start pressing this, let out a little bit of the air. And I'm just going to hold the edge here. And I'm going to do one long link. Now since we're doing one long link and then we are going to roll it after, you don't want it to be super tight because we do need to press on the air a little bit. But as we're going, kind of want to get it into the shape that we're looking for. We'll try and take care of the air bubbles as we go, but just keep rolling it. So I have a break there, which just means I get to start a new set of, a new link here. All right, and that's everything except what's in the tube. Everything that's in the tube, I'm just gonna take out and just fry it up and eat it. All right, not my best work. There's a lot of air pockets, but we will get this taken care of. So it's time to link these suckers. Of course, I just did my first whole link without filming it because I am not a smart man. But what I'm gonna do, and what I did there was I took the end, I tied it off, then I made the size that I'm looking for, about like so. I gave it a nice bunch of rolls away from me. Then I came to the next one. I got that amount. Don't tie it. Go to the one after that and then continue rolling in the same direction. So I'm always rolling away from me and just moving along like so. And then with the last one, just tying it off. And there we go, guys. Here's 5 pounds worth of sausage. As you can see, there are quite a few holes all over that I need to take care of. There are special tools for it, but you know what works just as well? A toothpick. So I'm just going to go around and I'm going to poke any holes that I see, poke the ends. You can really actually go kind of as ham as you want on here because as they sit in the fridge, they are going to compress a little bit and contract, so it won't have huge holes everywhere. Those look pretty good to me, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them onto a wire rack and put them in the fridge to let the casings dry out and really shrink together. Our fresh sausage is now done, which means you can freeze it, you can cook it, you can do whatever you want with it. But remember, it is a fresh sausage, so leave it in the fridge for a couple of days, but don't leave it there forever. It's not cured. Now, I want to eat these suckers, so I think we're going to turn this into beer brats, which means I have a pot full of beer and a little bit of water, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. As far as beer choices, guys, go with a lager, pilsner. Don't go with an IPA or a stout unless you really want that flavor profile, but that might be weird. So let's bring this to a boil. Now, of course, because I pulled this off the burner, it stopped boiling, but I'm going to throw in my onions here, my garlic, and then I just snipped 3 of our bratwursts. looking nice and pretty. And I'm gonna put them in as well. And we're gonna boil them for about 15 to 20 minutes. You want 4? Okay. About 20 minutes later, and these brats have been boiled. These are pretty much cooked at this point. You could eat them right now, but they don't look too appetizing. So we need to get them grilled off. So I'm going to take them out. I'm going to put the beer and the onions back onto the stove and let them keep going for the entire time that we are grilling up these brats. And I'll use these to go onto our bread or just on the side because they will have a nice beer flavor and be delicious. But let's put this back onto the stove and let's get out there onto our grill. Little Smoky Joe is ready to go, so I'm just gonna put our brats on. We're looking for a little bit of color and some grill marks on these. Honestly, the boiling took them to the temperature where they're ready to eat, so we just want to get them nice and grill ready. Little Smoky Joe Stalin is doing a good job. We got some nice color on these. Like I said, they were probably all ready to eat after the boil. I was trying to get some color on them, and I think these are good. Let's pull them, and let's eat these suckers. Looking good. And after our grill session, we are ready to eat. In all honesty, after boiling them, like I said, you could probably eat them. 165 is a safe point for pork, only because we ground it. Realistically, 140 is probably fine, but I didn't tell you that. Since it's a pork shoulder, you can go much further, close to that 200 mark. I probably wouldn't take it that far, but that means if we boil them to 160, 170, we can grill them and go to 180, and they'll be just fine. But what really matters is how do these things taste? We got that nice color from the charcoal grill, but I'm really interested to know how we're gonna taste these. So without further ado, it's time to give it the old-fashioned chomp. I love a good bratwurst. I love a good beer brat. These brats are really, really good. Often you'll find brats with some veal or some beef, but I want to do all pork. And I'm really glad that I tested them after I cased them, because adding that extra fennel and marjoram really came together for some extra flavor, and these are really, really good. Guys, if this is your first time making bratwurst, this is a great place to start. This is my favorite recipe. And if you're gonna boil them in some beer with some onions, that's gonna be great on a bun. Add some horseradish or some mustard, whatever you want, but it's gonna be really, really good. And as we get into these fall temps, guys, this is a perfect meal and one of my favorites. And I can't help but have another piece. It's a really, really good sausage, guys. We made 5 pounds of it. It wasn't too much effort. You absolutely can make these, and they're so much better than buying them from the store. I highly recommend it. If you guys like making your own fresh sausage, especially if you like making your own brats, what do you do differently? If you make these, let me know what your thoughts are. As always, guys, cook something fantastic, and I will see you on the next cook. Take it easy.